Hey guys, today we are replacing or removing the battery on the S22 Ultra and S22 Plus. I'm going to remove the battery of this device using the heat method. I find this method to be the easiest way to remove a battery out of a Samsung device. I'm going to use a heat gun to heat the front of the device, especially the area where I think the battery double-sided tape is. The question you might be asking yourself is this method dangerous for your smartphone screen? And I can say no, I didn't have any screen burns, any screen damage on any of the device that I used this method to remove the battery. I had one complaint in my comment box on one of my videos that while removing the battery, I tend to apply too much force on the battery and it tend to be a little bit bent on the bottom or on the area where I try to apply the force to lift the battery up. So as you just saw it, using a suction cup to try to lift the battery up does not work. There is too much double-sided tape on the back of the battery and it requires too much force to lift the battery up, and it might damage the battery if you apply too much force using a suction cup trying to lift the battery up. I think even using alcohol on the base of the battery, you might still require a lot of force to pull the battery up without using a tool to pry the battery upward. Alcohol might seem easy, and I'm going to show you a little bit later why I don't use alcohol and I think it's dangerous. So I have heat up the device multiple times now, and right now I'm trying to insert my metal tool between the battery and the frame of the device. There is a small gap, but this gap is really small, but if the tip of your tool is not really flat, it's going to be a struggle and you might even damage the battery if you force too much. At this moment I was able to insert the tool in and I'm trying to pry out the battery upward little by little and trying to use the minimum amount of force required to lift the battery up. So by now the device has cooled down, and that is why we are having a little bit of a struggle to lift the battery up. The best way is to insert your tool either right or left and start to lift the battery by applying minimum force, and then you can move at the bottom of the device and do the same thing. At that point you have lifted the battery up on two corners of the device. Like I said, the device had cooled down, so I needed to reheat the screen of the device so that the heat on the screen can transfer directly onto the double-sided tape on the back of the battery. So I decided to remove the suction cup because I didn't find any benefit of having the suction cup on top of the battery. And also after heating the device, the suction cup wasn't able to help me lift the battery up. And also the safest way to do this is to hit the device multiple times. You start to apply the pressure at the bottom of the battery and see the battery getting lifted. You need to repeat that process multiple times because you do not want the screen of the device to get very hot, like 100 or 110 degrees Celsius compared to 50 degrees 3 times. That is going to be less stress on the screen, and if the process is done right, the first tool will lift the battery a little bit enough for you to insert a second tool. The second tool can be anything, another metal tool like the first one, or a thicker plastic tool. After you have inserted your second tool inside, you can go at the other side of the device, either the left if you started on the right, or you can go at the bottom of the battery also. Here we are going to do the same thing. If there is space created between the battery and the frame of the device, insert the tip of your tool and start to apply some upward pressure. Most likely there won't be a gap there. Use your tool to apply some upward pressure and you will see the battery getting separated from the frame of the device. And when you have the bottom of the battery already loose and you're able to grab it by hand, you can just pull the battery slowly out of the frame of the device. So this is how you can methodically remove the battery of a S22 Plus. So if you need to replace the battery, you have the new battery that you're going to insert inside the frame of the device with the new double-sided tape. In this case, I'm going to reinstall the battery that we removed. I just need to insert the battery inside the frame of the device and apply some light pressure on the battery. And as you can see, the battery is strongly stuck and the battery does not come off even if I strongly swing the device right and left. The S22 Plus is done. Let's move on to the S22 Ultra. So for the case of the S22 Ultra, we are going to use the same method to remove the battery. But the only different thing that I did for this one was to hit the device longer before trying to remove the battery. And in this case, I was using the maximum power output of the heat gun, but also switching between the maximum and minimum to to avoid any damage on the screen. I do not recommend hitting the screen of the device all at once for a longer period of time because the risk of damaging the screen is very high, and I was a little bit afraid of damaging the screen after I have heated up this device and removed the battery. So the best practice is to take your time, hit the device multiple times, and you will drastically decrease the risk of damaging the screen or the battery. So for the S22 Ultra, I didn't start at the right or the left of the battery because the gap between the battery and the frame of the device was really small and I didn't want to damage or dent the battery on that area. Very similar to what you saw on the S22 Plus, I was able to lift the battery a little bit, insert a second tool, and started heating up the device a second time so that the process is going to go really smooth. The double-sided tape on the back of this battery is warm now, and I was able to remove the second tool and use my primary tool to lift the battery slowly until it is completely out of the device. The S22 Ultra has a 5000 mAh battery. It's big, and the double-sided tape on the back also is quite significant. So these two marks are what are left on the battery after you use a tool to remove the battery. So there is no way you will not have a small dent on the battery even if you use alcohol before trying to pull the battery out. You will have to use a tool at the bottom or right or left to lift the battery up, and the performance is not affected by this dent. Like and subscribe, and see you on the next video.